Alrighty, hello, and welcome back to another week of the LSBA. Today is Season 8, Week 2, where the Seattle Staraptors are going to be fighting the MangoKarp SolgaLeos. So our opponent's waiting to start the battle soon, so I'm just going to fly through our team building here. Just quickly to review, our opponent's team is MegaLopunny, Lander's Therian form, Blacephalon, Rotom Wash, Chansey, Grimmsnarl, Mew, Magnezone, Kyurem normal, so just the regular Kyurem, Tangrowth, and Scolipede. And our overall roster is Dragapult, Tapu Lele, Weavile, Mega Medicham, Galarian Zapdos, Ribombee, Nidoking, Incineroar, Azelf, Regieleki, and Milotic. So, with that in mind, the team that we've brought this week are Tapu Lele, Weavile, Incineroar, Dragapult, Azelf, and Zapdos. So I'll just go through again really quickly like I did last week and quickly go over the reasons for each of these team members and what kinds of sets they're running. So I'll start with Azelf actually. This is just a very standard suicide lead Azelf. Focus Sash, we've got Stealth Rocks as the entry hazard of choice this week. There's definitely a precedent to bring sticky webs against the opposing team with fast mons like MegaLopunny and Blacephalon potentially. But I figured that with the amount of knockoff that we have on this team, we have like 3 Pokemon that can knock off. And the fact that we have some just relatively fast Pokemon like Dragapult here, as well as Incineroar, to handle those 2 speedy threats kind of well, I figured that we could get away without sticky webs this time. That ends up coming back to bite us in the butt later. If we fight this team again in the playoffs, we might bring sticky web instead, but I've opted for Stealth Rocks this week. Knockoff for general utility, Taunt specifically because my opponent has a number of bulky and kind of obnoxious stally Pokemon, like Chansey, for example, is the one that grinds my gears the most, but sometimes Mew does obnoxious statusy stuff. Grimmsnarl obviously has Prankster for Prankster screens, Prankster Thunder Waves, and all that good stuff. So Taunt if we can make use of it, if not, that's fine. And then I last minute opted for Explosion over U-Turn this time, just because I'm only bringing one of my defensive mons this week, which is Incineroar. My team doesn't have a lot of defense. Technically, I've Milotic is another option. But so I realized that if I lead Azelf, which I almost certainly will, and if I clicked U-Turn turn 1, like what am I going to safely U-Turn into? Not really anything, so we're just going to go with the classic Explosion Suicide lead set. If we get to get it off, great. If not, it's not a big deal. Anything except for Blacephalon, they'll poke at least a decent sized hole in. Maybe not so much for like Lando T with Intimidate or something like that, but we'll take what we can get. So I'll hop back to the beginning of the order now. So we have Choice Scarf Tapu Lele as our revenge killer this time. I really value Psychic Surge in this matchup so that my opponent is limited with the amount of priority stuff they can do. The primary targets that I was looking at is like MegaLopunny with Fake Out is very spammable outside of Psychic Terrain. Grimmsnarl with both things like Sucker Punch as well as Thunder Wave. Basically any like moves that hit my Pokemon Grimmsnarl can't do. So I don't think Psychic Terrain stops like Prankster Light Screen, for example, but it stops things like MegaLopunny's Fake Out mostly. Then we just have a nice range of attacking options here. We have dual stabs, of course. I opted for Hidden Power Ice for my Hidden Power this week, just because it hits Landorus 4 times was the main thing that I was looking at, but if we can get a HP Ice off on Tangrowth, it's not the worst thing in the world. And then Focus Blast for things like Kyurem on the Switch, or Chansey isn't going to do that much damage to you anyways, but we'll take what we can get, basically. My other considerations for these 2 moves was HP Fire for things like the Magnezone, which now Focus Blast kind of takes care of, and Energy Ball is my other coverage move for things like the Rotom. But I realized that Tapu Lele can't like reliably KO those things. It's mostly going to be using its stabs, I predict. So we're just going to lean into those. These other moves are like if I think the Magnezone might switch in, then I can predict and go for Focus Blast or whatever. But pretty standard. So this time we're going back to a more typical Weavile like I would usually run. I'm running Pursuit this week over Ice Shard, which is my typical go-to Weavile in like regular OU or whatever. The reason for that is that like, even though we don't have Terrain Extender or anything, so our Psychic Terrain isn't going to be up, like, the entire match or anything, I figured running a priority move when I don't really need it seemed overly risky. We're going to be counting on Weavile's natural speed, basically, to try and outspeed and KO things. Pursuit, specifically, is for Blacephalon and Mew. Both of those are obnoxious offensive threats, kind of. I guess Mew is more of a defensive threat, but it doesn't really matter. So we're going to try and Pursuit trap things. The knockoff is just standard Triple Axel. And Low Kick for primarily the Kyurem, the Magnezone. Low Kick actually doesn't do that much to Chansey, unfortunately. I think the damage calc said that Triple Axel did a similar amount. But I suppose Low Kick is more consistent damage, since it can't miss. But yeah. So just attacking Weavile. It's got a Life Orb, so we can switch our attacks around and all that good stuff. Incineroar is our defensive backbone this week instead of Milotic, so we're running a very max physically defensive Intimidate Incineroar this week. When I was trying to decide whether I wanted to run it more specially defensive like Smogon recommends, or if I wanted to go physically defensive, I looked at the threats that my opponent has and figured that physically defensive was the way to go. Because on the special side, like, since it resists Blacephalon's stab moves and Ghost and Fire, it can actually take those pretty well, even just with the HP investment, no special defense. And then on the other hand, my opponent has things like Mega Lopunny, which it can take like one hit from with max defense like this if it's intimidated. Lando T is a physical attacker, Grimmsnarl, Tangrowth, and Scolipede, so just of the mons that I felt like I didn't have as good of a defensive hold on, I felt like the physical attackers on the squad were a little more threatening. So that's why we went for that. So our moves here are Knockoff, Parting Shot. I went for Parting Shot over U-Turn just because I have two other U-Turners in Dragapult and Zapdos. I figure Parting Shot might help something like Dragapult or Zapdos do their kind of like wall breaky, sweepy thing better. You know, lowers the opponent's attack and special attack. So that's all good. Toxic for some passive damage on things like Chansey or Tangrowth. Then Overheat, even though Incineroar has higher natural attack, it's only good Fire Stab. It's Flare Blitz, which takes its HP away. Since we're trying to use this as kind of a defensive tanky mon, I figured that preserving as much HP as we could is probably the way to go. And then it also hits some things like Tangrowth, which has much more physical defense than special defense harder. Overall, anticipate Overheat being kind of like a trump card though. I'm anticipating most of the time I'll be using these other three moves. Our Dragapult this week is a Choice Specs variant with Infiltrator specifically. I know a lot of Dragapults run Infiltrator anyways, but this week it's especially important because our opponent has that Grimmsnarl, which can and likely will, if it shows up, set up some priority screens. The Dragapult has the ability to just hit through those, thankfully. It's very fast, it's very speedy. As long as Psychic Terrain is up, Mega Lopunny can't fake out this, and we outspeed Mega Lopunny, which is great. Then so for our attacks, we just have Draco Meteor, U-Turn. Should I go all in on this? I probably should. I'm gonna make a split-second decision and go for Fire Blast over Flamethrower just for maximum power. And Hydro Pump, so all of our moves have a chance to miss, so if that comes back to bite us in the butt, so be it, I guess. But we're going for maximum damage, basically. We just want to throw this in, and when we threaten something out, we just want to hit whatever comes in as hard as possible, and or clean up after things that have wall broken for us. And then last but certainly not least is our Galarian Zapdos. This is a set that I've been running on the ladder, just kind of practicing for this LSBA season prior to the season starting. So I've been running with leftovers, which is kind of similar to how I run my Moxie Gyarados, just in regular formats. I know that there's probably a better item that it could use, it's all the same. But I kind of like leftovers for the longevity factor. That way if we Brave Bird something, we can heal back up slowly. If we start racking up Thunder's Kick's defense drops, we can potentially, you know, kind of preserve HP as we're lowering things defense and just all that good kind of stuff. So Brave Bird, Close Combat are our power stabs. Thunder's Kick is our, like, reverse setup sweeping, I guess. I love this move, actually. Thunder's Kick is so much fun to use. And then U-turn for momentum. So that is the team. That's the team. So I'm gonna let our opponent know that we are ready to go, and we will be back in a moment with the battle. Alrighty, so here we go with the actual battle. Once again, our league members have started to filter in. Badoofer actually plays D&D with me and my opponent, Thick Taco, aka Rossy here, so he's here early, but it was posted to Discord, so presumably some of our other league members will come spectate as well if they're not busy. But so let's see what we've got. We've got Lopunny, Grimmsnarl, Scolipede, Rotom, Landorus, and Mew. Okay, I'm actually a little relieved not to see the Blacephalon, actually. I think in this particular matchup, Incineroar will definitely do some good work for us. So let's see, what do we want to lead? That's the question, huh? So I'm thinking if we lead Tapu Lele, we can immediately stop any priority shenanigans that happen. But if we lead Azelf, then we can try and get our rocks up. I'm just trying to see how important rocks will actually be in this matchup. They're super effective against the Scolipede, but other than that, I don't know that Stealth Rocks are super important here. Because then I'm just worried, if I lead Azelf and my opponent leads Mega Lopunny, I can either hard switch into Tapu Lele to like predict the fake out, but if my opponent predicts that, then we lose Tapu Lele immediately, which would suck. I think we're just gonna go for it though. I'm not gonna overthink it too much. Let's just lead Azelf and we'll see what happens. Like I say, the main thing that I'm worried about is a Lopunny lead. If my opponent leads, not Incineroar, Landorus T, then he'll probably try and set up Stealth Rocks, I would think. If that's the case, we could taunt it. If my opponent leads Grimmsnarl, we can taunt that as well. Yeah, basically anything but Lopunny lead would be great. And even Lopunny lead isn't horrible, it's just we have to make a risky decision if our opponent does lead Lopunny. I guess I'll start evaluating how important is Tapu Lele actually. It kind of is, because it's my choice scarfer. Like, if I was responsible, I wouldn't just sack it off willy-nilly. Let's see what our opponent leads. Lopunny. Alright. Is the Tapu Lele too obvious, though? That's the question. That's the question indeed. Yeah, this is already risky. This is exactly what I wanted not to happen. So our options here, we can go for Stealth Rock. Our opponent fakes us out, and then we take a giant chunk of damage. They U-turn next turn to pivot out. We can hard switch into Tapu Lele, but if our opponent goes for return, then we basically lose Tapu Lele, which sucks. Yeah, Azelf's not worthwhile to try and save. We're just gonna go for the Stealth Rocks. Our opponent is gonna fake us out. Okay, that's fine. It's not ideal, but we'll take it. So, let's see. So our options now are basically, we can go into Incineroar to Intimidate, probably... Let me do a damage calc really quickly. Instead of hypothesizing, let's just see how much Mega Lopunny does to Incineroar here. So if it's an all-out attacker, and if Intimidate is procced, Lopunny, how much does the U-turn do? Oh, U-turn's not even on the set. Okay, let's add it to here. U-turn would do like 10 to 12%, that's fine. Even high jump kick would only do 58 to 68. Wow, that wouldn't be great. I think we're gonna go for that. Actually, no, that's kind of silly. That's kind of silly. I think what we actually do is we just go for Stealth Rocks. Okay, that actually worked out really well. So our opponent hard switched into Mew, which is A-okay with us, A-okay with us. I'm gonna taunt it first, just in case it wants to do anything to us, basically. I just want to tell Mew no anything. It wants to use spikes. Yes, absolutely, we do not want that. I'm gonna go for knockoff. Ooh, that'll do a big chunk of damage, actually. Mewtwo's just, not Mewtwo, regular Mew is just gonna U-turn out here. That's A-okay with us. See, at this point, if my opponent goes back into Mega Lopunny, they're almost certainly not going to use Fake Out because they outspeed Azelf, and they can just go for a regular attack to KO us. So with that in mind, we're just going to sack off Azelf here. It's not worth trying to play around and preserve Azelf, or not Azelf. Azelf is one of the battlers in our draft league. Azelf is my Pokemon. Oh, I just realized I didn't do nicknames again this week, so people are going to roast me over that. That's okay. Now we're going to click Explosion. Yeah, my opponent's just going to go for a return and KO us. That's A-okay. Oh, I just realized my opponent also didn't bring Chansey. That bodes well for us. I love that Chansey's not here. So just over here on this other screen, I'm going to get a kill log going, make a Lopunny, takes out Azelf. Alrighty, so we're actually not in that bad of a position, honestly. What we can do pretty easily here, especially since Mew's at low HP, we're choice scarfed on our Tapu Lele, so I feel pretty comfortable just switching this in, going for a Moonblast. I'm pretty positive that it'll just KO, and then it threatens to do a giant chunk to anything else, basically. The one exception would be Scolipede, but we can pretty safely swap into Incineroar if that happens. Moonblast does 118%, so we're just gonna go for that. It's very safe. I guess what are our other options? Dragapult's faster. If we want Dragapult, I could launch off a Hydro Pump would be the best option. I kinda don't like that though. Let's just go the Tapu Lele route. Since Incineroar is still full HP, I feel pretty comfortable just going for the hard switch if my opponent does switch in Incineroar, or Scolipede rather. Okay, so here's a hard choice actually. So my opponent has Scolipede, which resists Fairy type, and Grimmsnarl, which is immune to, but weak to, whatchamacallit, Psychic type. So I'm going to use one of my stabs. I have to figure out which one though. I think Moonblast is actually the safer option here. Technically my Psychic attacks are boosted by Psyshock, but I think that makes it too obvious of a choice in this scenario. We're gonna go for Moonblast. Just because, like I said, with Moonblast we're safe to hit everything except Scolipede, but if Scolipede comes in, we can very safely, we can do some damage to it at least, which is good, and then we can pretty safely hard switch out into Incineroar. Granted, the same thing is true of Psychic. I suppose that would have been okay. With Incineroar being able to hard switch into Grimmsnarl afterwards, but Actually, you know, since our opponent's given us time to think it over, I think Incineroar can actually switch into Grimmsnarl more easily than Scolipede, so we're gonna go for the Psyshock actually. Just because, okay, so the only two switch-ins really are those two, either Grimmsnarl or Scolipede. But of those two, they're both physical attackers. Grimmsnarl actually can't do that much in Psychic terrain since it can't use like T-Wave or whatever. So I think we would rather hit the Scolipede. Okay, it's gonna be the Rotom Wash. It'll be neither of those. That's actually okay. So that works out well for us. Because Psychic trades up, that boosts our Psychic damage. Or does it? I can't remember. Does Psychic Terrain boost the psychic damage of people on the terrain or against opponents on the terrain? I can't remember. Okay, so I think I'm just gonna fire again. If our opponent wants to go into Grimmsnarl here, that's honestly fine, I think. Again, we can just hard switch into Incineroar if Grimmsnarl does come in. That's a-okay. So we've got Tapu Lele takes out Rotom Wash. And here's the Grimmsnarl indeed. I just really don't think Grimmsnarl can do anything to Incineroar, so we're just gonna go ahead and hard switch Incineroar in. If I were to guess, I would think that my opponent starts setting up screens here. Spirit Break, okay. That's a fairy move that lowers special attack. That's actually kind of frustrating for us since we do have a special-oriented Incineroar technically. I think at this point I'm just gonna go for a casual knockoff. Our opponent could hard switch into... Lopunny here, though. I think I'm actually going to go for Parting Shot. We have 2 turns of turn left. Let's go Parting Shot, predicting a switch on my opponent's part. If they want to just start setting up screens or whatever, that's fine. Yeah, they're just going to go for screens. That's a-okay. So what do we swap in here? I think just Weavile, honestly. Weavile's kind of not an MVP in this matchup. It's like slightly slower than Lopunny, which kind of sucks for us. So I think we're safe to just fire off a triple axle, I think. I'm just thinking, so our other option would be to go into Dragapult here, but I think Dragapult's too valuable later on. Zapdos. Okay, my opponent just set up Reflect. Yeah, so what do we do? Do we just go for the Infiltrator here? Let me run a damage calc really quickly. So our Dragapult versus Grimmsnarl dual screens with light screen up. Oh, well, it doesn't matter because we have Infiltrator. This is Fire Blast. Yeah, no, we can't go into Dragapult here. If Dragapult can only do about 50 to 60% to this, so we have to do the Okay, it's a little risky. How much can Spirit Break do to Galar Zapdos, actually? Spirit Break does a lot, and with Reflect Up, Galar Zapdos won't do a lot. Okay, we have to go into Tapu Lele, actually. It's the only thing that's kind of a safe switch for us. And we will just casually go for Moonblast. My opponent's almost certainly going to throw up Light Screen. That's fine, honestly. Because what this will force our opponent to do almost certainly will be to go into Scolipede after he's done setting up all of his screens here. And I opted not to bring a way to get rid of the screens on this team. I considered bringing Rubombi with Defog, but that was a lot of team slot just for Rubombi where I didn't care about sticky webs that much. I considered going for... whatchamacallit, I considered going for a Defog on... or no. Rapid Spin Regieleki. I didn't like Regieleki in this matchup that much, though. So all those things considered, I don't have any screen breaking. Brick Break and Incineroar was another consideration, but I just didn't feel like that was a very good option, really. So I think Grimmsnarl almost certainly hard switches out here. I want to get my terrain back up when possible, so I'm actually going to hard switch into Incineroar here, predicting Scolipede, if I were to guess. Because my opponent saw that Moonblast did 53%, so Grimmsnarl can't take another one. We're faster than Grimmsnarl, so yeah, Scolipede comes in. That is a-okay. It's going to take a nice heavy chunk off with the Stealth Rocks there. We'll take it, we'll take it. I don't know what item I'm expecting. Oh wait, I do. Shadow the Hedge recovered a little HP with its leftovers. Okay, so we're just going to go for Overheat here. My opponent may have Protect to build up speed boosts, I'm not sure. But regardless, I think one Overheat and then a Parting Shot next turn, probably. We'll see how it goes, we'll see how it goes. So what's frustrating is that Grimmsnarl is still alive, so it can come in to set up one more round of Stealth Rocks, or not Stealth Rocks, Reflect and Light Screen later if it wants to. But I don't think we're in an awful position. The only thing that's a little bit too bad is that the Intimidate hit the Grimmsnarl instead of the Scolipede, but it is what it is. We'll take it, we'll take it. My opponent's just gonna go for Earthquake, interesting. Okay, we can take that pretty well, and we're actually gonna put it within range of, like, threatening to KO it. So it looks like Earthquake did 40.7%. Their only fire resist already got KO'd. I think I'm just gonna launch off another Overheat, honestly. Let's just go. Make them either switch out or risk the damage roll to KO us. Yeah, they're just gonna risk the damage roll. That is a-okay. They're going to Intimidate us. We're gonna get a little bit of damage, not very much, but that's fine, honestly. So what our opponent can do here, there's a few things. If they go U-turn, they can pick up some momentum. If they go Earthquake to try and KO us, I think Zapdos is probably what I switch in here no matter what, just to go through the options. U-turn, Zapdos is a little unfortunate in that scenario, but not too bad actually. I think Zapdos can actually stand up to most of these mons pretty well. We're max speed to speed tie with the Mew, so that would be sketchy, but not the end of the world. If they go for Earthquake, then Zapdos is absolutely the best option, and if they go for a Rock move, I think Zapdos is just all around solid. So the thing with this though is that we can't go for Parting Shocks. Landorus will certainly KO us, so we're just gonna hard switch into Zapdos here. Hopefully we can take whatever it's got for us. Oh, it's got Defog, okay. It gave us an attack boost, Defiant attack boost, let's go. Yes, alrighty, alrighty. So nothing on the opponent's team can take a +2 Brave Bird, so we're just gonna do that. It took it pretty well actually. Knocked off our leftovers, it's fine. Okay, so one more turn of Reflect. I think we just gotta go for Brave Bird again. We're gonna take a bunch more damage, but I don't think U-turn will kill through Reflect. In fact, I know it won't. If this thing took that Brave Bird that well, then that's all we can really do. That's fine, that's fine. So what this is good though is that does force the Lopunny out to deal with us. Well, the Scolipede could have done the job too, actually. I'm inclined to believe that the Scolipede might have been the better option, actually. In any case, I'm gonna quick U-turn just in case. Yeah, there's no way that my opponent wasn't gonna do that. Okay, so I'm a couple of KOs behind, actually. So just two, actually. So Zapdos took out Landorus and Lopunny took out Zapdos. Alrighty, so this still puts us in a pretty good position because the Scolipede isn't in a position where it can take a Moonblast, I think. I'm gonna run the calc really quick, but I don't think it can take this very well, if at all. Moonblast will do 40 to 47%, yeah. So now we can just go for Moonblast with pretty much impunity. I don't think the Scolipede can take this. The Lopunny can't fake us out while we have this going. I'm pretty sure this is a 2-hit KO on the Mew. Yeah. Unless my opponent switches out or protects here. Yeah, so Tapu Lele takes out Mew. Here comes the Scolipede. We're just gonna Moonblast this as well. Tapu Lele takes out Scolipede. Tapu Lele will most likely take out the Grimmsnarl, yes. Okay, so here's actually a consideration. We only have one turn of Psychic Terrain left. But the Psychic Terrain doesn't matter. Our opponent can only fake us out this turn. So let's go for the Moonblast. That'll do a fair amount. The return will not KO us, actually. Interesting. Okay, that's GG. That one was considerably easier than I thought it would. GG, Rossy. Your team scared the heck out of me, but you didn't bring the two things that I thought would be the sketchiest to fight, which are both the Chansey as well as the Blacephalon. So I think we were really fortunate not to see either of those. Alrighty, so that is a second win in a row. A really strong start to our season so far. So let's take a look forward to next week. We will be fighting in week 3. Our opponent is Dylan of the Dolando Donphans. That'll be a super fun fight. Alrighty, so thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the battle, and I'll see you back next week for week 3. Have a good one. Bye!